Hi, I'm Michelle Malkin. I am the author of the new book, Open Borders, Inc., Who's Funding America's Destruction, which comes out officially on Tuesday. And this is my live signing. If you go to premiercollectibles.com/Michelle Malkin, you can order a book. I will sign it. And today I am very privileged and honored to be joined by my friend, free speech TV warrior. I was going to say masked man. Marked man.
Marked man, yeah.
Gavin
Wanted.
McInnes, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. This is going to be fun.
So, you have to work.
Oh, yeah, I'll work.
Yes, you are going to moderate and be reading off questions that people are sending in. So make sure you submit those Q&As, and hopefully we'll get to you in this hour. But we also get to talk.
Yes, and we should
Really?
also mention that this is a pilot we're doing for a potential morning show
Yes, that's right.
called M&M, where we're on coffee cups and then we pop out of them and on the set. It's going to be fun.
So, like, we're going to have to do grilling segments.
Yeah, we'll have celebrities. It'll be like that little woman and then the black guy with the gap in his teeth.
He doesn't do it with her anymore.
No?
He got booted off.
Well, then there's an opening.
That's right.
Let's slide into their DMs.
So, yeah, this is a pilot.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh, awesome. So, there's a whole chapter in the book on the SPLC.
Uh-huh.
And the book is about the money, the massive amount of money and the global financiers behind the war on our borders and our sovereignty. But they're sort of crocheted in with it is the war on free speech that's happening in America. And I open up the chapter, because you haven't read it yet, all the way through.
I can't read, so I'm waiting for the audio.
Where I talk about something that, of course, people who are in the immigration enforcement community have been familiar with for years now. But really the roots of this deplatforming, for me at least, I trace to 2006 and 2007. And I had appeared in an early video that was put out by the National Council of La Raza. Did I say that right?
La
La
Raza.
Raza. La
La
Raza.
Raza.
The race.
Shocking name.
Yes, they're allowed to get away with that. Targeting people like me who have been forceful advocates for strict immigration control and enforcement. So the YouTube channel was called We Can Stop the Hate, and there was a menu of code words of hate that were part of the very first dictionary of banned words,
Really?
essentially. And I was guilty because at the time I had come out with Invasion in 2002,
Mm-hmm.
and in the next 4 to 5 years kept pounding away at this theme that immigration should be treated as a national security issue. And I was, fairly unapologetic about calling attention to groups like La Raza, and essentially these militant ethnic separatists who, even at that time, people forget that during the Bush amnesty years of 2006 and 2007, these people were like pre-Antifa.
Yeah.
Right? They were
It
going.
was so strange, too, because they would have these rallies with these signs saying, we're sick of being in the shadows. You're right there.
That's right.
Like, imagine cocaine dealers going out and saying, we're sick of being vilified. We're just selling coke, dude.
Yes. Yes.
You're going to get busted.
Right. We're so terrified that we are, trampling over private property and yanking down American flags at high schools.
The Chinese illegals are looking at them going,
like,
what are you guys doing?
You're like,
Shut the hell up.
shh. And so I talked about, especially having cut my teeth in newspaper journalism at the Los Angeles Daily News in the early 1990s, the ideological roots of Azatlan, banned word, Reconquista. Oh, I listed these words in the code.
I'm offended that those words are offensive.
Wait a minute, it gets better. Crime.
Crime?
Yes.
That's a banned word.
Demographics, disease, of course, illegal aliens,
Yep. Which is in legal documents. The term
Yes,
illegal
of
alien.
course, it's
Yeah.
in the federal code, right?
Right.
Invasion, which of course was the title of my book. And yet this group going around calling itself the race was designating who was hateful and who was not. So sound familiar, my friend?
It sure does. And the race, La Raza, is the exact same as having a political party called the white race.
Yes.
And it clearly shows their agenda, which is identity politics, race over everything else. But they get a pass. And it's a double standard. And I think it's the bigotry of low expectations. Where you go, oh, cute little brown people. Yeah, the race. Okay, move along. They're adorable.
Yeah.
But if anyone else does it, they have a heart attack. Not that I want a political party called the white race.
Yes.
I don't like either of those things. I don't like La Raza or a political party called the white race, clearly.
Right.
That's called rational thinking.
Right.
But the way that these guys get away with it and the way they can attack the English language until you can't use normal words. I mean, they keep updating it too. Like, this is out, and the Pepe the Frog is offensive, and Kekistan. All of these jokes are now verboten.
Yes.
So they kill your vocabulary, they kill jokes, they kill fun, and I think it's ultimately to their detriment, because I think young people are going, these guys are boring. I want to be on the right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, from 2006, 2007 until now, what has made groups like La Raza and its partners at the Southern Poverty Law Center so much more potent and effective at silencing anyone who jokes, anyone who stands up for our country, is the partnership with Silicon Valley.
Yeah. They really control the conversation. They control the national discussion.
Yeah.
And we can't say that's not true because we're banned. So they can go off at a tangent and make up all this stuff about you, and you can't respond.
Yes, right. Because at least back in the day, and remember, I mean, YouTube really didn't come into existence until 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
And I had just started Hot Air, and we were posting
I remember it
videos.
well. Remember your logo was a guy screaming at a camera.
Yeah, all raged and everything, ragey, yeah. But they hadn't started in on, their algorithms.
Right.
And their AI.
Well, they really started ramping everything up after Trump,
Yes.
where they said, oh, wait a minute, he's using Twitter and everything. Because remember there was the whole, they kept saying no one's coming to his rallies.
Yes.
And in Florida, he held up his phone, and you just saw an ocean of human beings.
Yeah.
And I think the left went, why are we giving him that power?
Yeah.
Let's take it away.
Yeah, and as somebody who's been in social media and new media and old new media, and had, a really, a lot of blessed success doing it, thinking that you could just plant your flag and, cream rises to the top, most views get to the top. I don't know if you remember this, but in the early days of YouTube, there was no, monkeying around with whatever their algorithm was. If you had the most views that day, you got on the front page at the top.
Yeah. That went on for a
Ha
long
ha
time.
ha!
Meritocracy.
Right.
I think we're supposed to get to some questions now.
Oh yeah, like I told you, you had to work.
This is going to be so when we do the actual show on USA Network or whatever it is, MSNBC, we would cut
Not
to a commercial.
HGTV.
Or HGTV.
No, let's do Food Network.
Food Network. We will cut to a commercial, and when we come back, some questions. So just imagine a commercial break there. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Michelle Malkin, why are these people held to a different standard than American citizens? And I assume by these people he's talking about illegal aliens.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is the profit motive,
Yeah.
certainly, and for the Democratic Party, the electoral motive.
Yep.
And for the longest time, and this was certainly true during the Bush years, there has been a push to secure a permanent ruling majority.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats, you have to give them credit, have that agenda. They've stuck with it. They're unapologetic about it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they've had many Chamber of Commerce allies helping them along and enabling it. And in large part, this book, as all of my books have done, this is the 7th one, goes after both political parties' establishments for ruining our country. And I do name names. I mean, it's not just the Soros left that has elevated illegal alien citizens above American citizens. And it is absolutely outrageous that you've got an illegal alien lawyers lobby that has been able to secure what in legalese they call standing, the ability to sue, the ability to go to court, for everyone from illegal alien teenagers who want government subsidized abortions, to illegal alien workers who are now suing for employment benefits, right? And
amazing.
yet you saw the news just a couple of weeks ago that, Kate Steinle's family not only is unable to sue a sanctuary city, but now the conviction on the gun charge has been thrown out by liberal California courts. And, as long as we have these sort of Chamber of Commerce open borders types fragging inside the tent, we're screwed.
Yeah, there's so many people attacking us. With George W. Bush broke open the borders.
Yes.
And he was supposed to be on our side.
Yes.
So we've got big tech changing the conversation. We've got both right and left prying open the borders because they see Hispanics and illegal aliens as some sort of a pet.
Yes.
They don't see them as...
Coke Industries, there was a raid on their plant just a couple of weeks ago. This is the Koch brothers. They founded something called the Libra Initiative, which joins hands with all of these amnesty groups.
When did they become globalists?
Well, a lot of libertarians are.
Yeah.
You know?
You have to start signing books.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Dear Michelle, I already ordered your book through Amazon, which will be sent to me after September 10th. I would rather have your autographed one that I saw today in your newsletter. I figure all I have to do is cancel my Amazon order and then reorder one from you unless every edition has your autograph in it. And I don't have to cancel my Amazon order. Thank you very much. Have a peachy day. Proud Vietnam vet.
Give the unautographed one to a neighbor or a friend or an unenlightened open borders acquaintance. And
That's a very funky signature you have. You should show the
Let's see.
camera that.
All right.
It's cooler than Trump's.
Is it?
It's kind of graffiti-ish. That's your tag.
That's my tag. I love it. So I'm tagging books.
As only one voice, what can an angered, concerned, and outraged citizen do? This is from Daryl in Everett, Washington.
Oh, there's so much that you can do. And not to be self-promoting, but the first thing that you should do is read the book from cover to cover. A lot of people do all sorts of vanity projects or books that have the shelf life of French fries. But for me, for each one of my books, and I know you've read a couple of them, I pour my entire heart and soul and mind into them because I want them to be reference guides for people. I want people to do more than just flip through it and use it as a doorstop. It's about using the information to make things happen. And people need to know about the 400 plus different organizations that I have spotlighted that have either taken our money through taxpayer subsidies or left-wing money, like George Soros, the obvious one. There's a whole chapter on the George Soros connections. But it's just so easy to default to this is all George Soros' fault. Every time a Catholic, and I am a Catholic, sits in a pew and puts money into the collection plate, not knowing where that money is going to go and how it's going to be used. If you consider yourself someone who's patriotic, someone who believes in sovereignty, somebody who spurns the radical ethnic separatism of La Razas, or the cheap labor exploitation mentality of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, do you know that your donation to a Catholic church could be going to Catholic Charities or the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, which are out there training illegal alien community organizers to endanger people? These are the people who become future sanctuary anarchists. And the number one thing that people should do is stop giving money to these organizations that are destroying us. Very simple. And of course you can't know that in so many ways because it has become forbidden for example, to talk about Soros connections now. Anti-Semitism. Really? I can't talk about what I saw on IRS forms?
How is it Semitism when his father is an atheist who hates religion and he's an atheist who hates religion? How are you Jewish then? I don't understand the whole anti-Semitism thing.
Yes.
And by the way, if you're worried about anti-Semitism, you should maybe focus on the guy who worked with the Nazis.
That would be a good start.
He's not a Holocaust survivor. He's a Holocaust facilitator.
Yes. And so, of course, this just reveals the disingenuousness of the people wielding these cards in the first place. And it becomes even more difficult when people who are trying to illuminate these connections and follow the money are banned from not only TV, but social media as well. And, you know, Soros's biggest friends are people in Silicon Valley and who regurgitate SPLC propaganda.
But why are we so vulnerable? Like, they talk about Islam and they say, what happened was it Wahhabism?
Yes, Wahhabism.
Wahhabism? I always get confused with the spicy green stuff with your sushi.
Wasabiism.
That spicy wasabiism makes your nose tingle. But I said, why is Islam vulnerable to being hijacked? Like, if they tried to hijack Christianity with those snake guys who think they can, not die from poisonous snakes, the rest of Christianity would say, no, we're not doing that. Mm-hmm. But Islam seemed easily hijackable. And now, I don't know, I feel like we are almost vulnerable to the snake guy in the sense that we are letting our society be infiltrated. We are, even religion, you go to church now and they're talking about climate change. And that was part of the globalist agenda, to get priests talking about climate change.
Sure.
So why are we so weak? Why are we so manipulatable?
So is this a question for political analysts or for evolutionary biologists? Because I'm thinking, what was in the water, or what mutation happened that this self-destructive thing took over? You know, somebody actually told me, I can't remember who it was, they told me a great story. I think, you know Palau? You know where Palau is? I've never been there. Okay. So apparently there's a type of jellyfish that lives in this intersection. How did we even get here? This is so great for the pilot. That lives in the intersection between fresh and salt water. You haven't heard this?
It's starting to sound familiar.
All right, and it's become this mecca for marine biologists because the jellyfish have forgotten how to sting. Because they're in this unique environment and there are no predators.
Huh.
Now, they've forgotten, but it hasn't been bred out of them. It's still there. They just don't ever use it.
It's sort of like testosterone in the American man.
But, like, do you see the metaphor? It's just like, we've lost our sting.
Well, ideally it's a cycle. Maybe it's that whole hard men create good times create weak men, weak men create bad times create strong men.
Yeah.
So maybe we're just in the strong men create, or good times create weak men part of the cycle.
Well, I'm glad it's a cycle and not like a dead end.
Not the apocalypse. This is from Kevin in Fort Collins, Colorado.
All right.
Are you doing a book signing tour? I'm in Fort Collins, as Gavin just said, and would like to meet you.
Okay. There will be many opportunities to meet me because I announced last week that as part of this book launch, I am going on a nationwide tour, and we are targeting sanctuary cities.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yes, so we'll be in Minneapolis, San Francisco, Phoenix. I'm going to be down in D.C. next week, right a stone's throw from the illegal alien rapist sanctuary space of Montgomery County, Maryland, which I used to live in. I don't know if you know that.
I don't know that.
And in part, escaped from there to Colorado, where the reader is from, because I saw what was coming down the pike. 11 years ago, the mall that I used to take my daughter to, the Lake Forest Mall in Montgomery County, was already showing signs of being hijacked by illegal alien gangs. And it was completely overrun by MS-13, and I'm not exaggerating, who would be carrying their machetes threatening to chop off people's hands and heads.
In the mall?
Yes. Yes, and so the mall recently shut down because it was basically like East LA there.
Wow.
Yes. And so all of the details about the tour are at Open Borders Inc., openbordersinc.com. Just go to book signings and you'll see the whole list. I think there's like more than a dozen, almost 15 cities that will be hitting between now and the end of the year, probably many more. And to answer the question, we will be in Denver. So check the schedule, I think, next month.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that though Michelle is great on camera, when you actually know her, she's a violent drunk. Not unlike Anna Wintour in The Devil Wears Prada. None of her staff are allowed to look her in the eyes. You can't see it here, but there's a broken wine glass that went soaring against that wall.
Yes.
There's red wine across the wall like that because someone was late. So don't get your hopes up. This is from John in El Paso, Texas. Hi, Patrona. Will you consider running for the House seat in Colorado Springs someday? That's a good question.
Is it? People
Yeah.
always ask me that about running for office.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Really? I think it's
You
that
would
is
hate
not.
it.
You know, we talked about things being in your genes. That is not in my genes. By the way, fun fact: did you know that I worked for the Huffington for Congress campaign a long time ago, 1994?
Ariana Huffington?
Her husband.
Oh. Didn't
Yes.
her husband
Yes.
leave her for a man? I
Yes.
think he made the right choice. Remember Trump saying that?
Maybe that's what deterred me from ever pursuing politics, just seeing how the sausage is made behind
Yeah.
the scenes.
I mean, I couldn't imagine being a totally noble, hardworking person and being in politics.
Can you count on one hand the number of noble elected politicians that you
Reagan,
respect?
Thatcher, running out.
Yeah.
Oh, Hugo Chavez.
Yeah, there you go.
Never forget Sean Penn's buddy Hugo. Okay, some misanthropic questions here. Maybe we're sounding a little too apocalyptic.
Are we?
Eric in
I
Colorado.
thought I was being optimistic.
He just said, will light prevail?
Will light prevail? Well, you know, I'm doing my best to shed it. That's a nice segue
That was
there.
good, yeah.
Thank you. I had a really hopeful experience last week that I want to brag about. So on Monday, Labor Day, after a couple of days of reaching out to people in Colorado, I had 200 incredible patriots show up outside of the Aurora, Colorado ICE detention facility. Did you hear about this?
No, that's awesome.
Because a huge theme of the book is to get off the sidelines. And I mean, you are an inspiration to me on this.
What are you, nuts?
Well, look, I mean, I moved from the swamp to a mountaintop. And for the last more than a decade of, raising my kids and being immersed in family life while at the same time having balance with career, it really just hit me that it is not enough to preach, to blog, to do cable TV news segments. And that's always been in my blood to, be in touch with the grassroots. And the very early uncorrupted days of the Tea Party were about that. Mm-hmm. And it was so cool to me because before that movement got hijacked, and maybe that's just an inevitable thing that these things get hijacked, I don't know. But, just organically, just ordinary people who wanted to do something.
Yeah.
To do something. Anyway, after watching in July this band of abolish ICE thugs, funded in large part by Soros allies or Soros directly himself, lay siege to this Aurora ICE facility outside of Denver, tear down the American flag, and raise Mexican flag in its place, along with a defaced Blue Lives Matter flag. I just had enough. And July passed, and August passed, and I just thought, well, it's always an excuse that mainstream conservatives make, that the reason why they don't come out in as big as numbers as the Soros people is that, they have jobs. Mm-hmm. Well, on Labor Day, everybody's off.
Yeah.
What is your excuse?
Right.
And just after a couple of days of reaching out to some of my really good friends in Colorado, local talk show host, Randy Corcoran, who's a lawyer, and Tom Tancredo, one of the few people I count on my hand as one. If you've ever met him, he
keeps popping up in every book I read.
He's golden.
Was he a school teacher a long time
Yes,
ago?
he was.
Yeah, I remember he was in the book The Worm in the Apple, that Peter Brimlow
Yes, Peter
book.
Brimlow, right.
And then Tancredo's back.
Yes.
He just pops up everywhere.
Well, we have so much in common, and then so when I moved to Colorado, it was just another wonderful providential occurrence that I had moved to his home state. He was a federal Department of Education official under Reagan, and so he was really onto the corrosion of multiculturalism and open borders and the confluence of those things long before Trump was, and bore so many slings and arrows, not just from the left, but from Karl Rove himself. And I always remind people, it's one of my favorite stories, but Tom is such a good guy. It was just a horrible experience to be ostracized by your own supposed party and allies. He was told by Karl Rove, because of his stalwart opposition to sanctuary cities and his understanding of how open borders created the environment for 9/11, whose anniversary we will be commemorating next week, was told by Karl Rove that he would never be allowed to, quote, darken the White House door. Essentially treated as if he himself was a domestic terrorist. And so, this was happening decades before we now see so many ordinary, patriotic citizens who are not elected officials suffering the same fate now.
It is strange. I was talking to Jim Goad the other day, and he goes, "Can you believe we won?" I go, "It sure doesn't feel like it."
That hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like, yeah, our guy is the king, but everyone in the castle is planning his assassination.
Right. From within the East Wing or West Wing.
Yeah. Here's Mike, Fort Pearson, Florida, wants to know, how does our current law compare to other Western nations? That's kind of a big question.
So, the biggest quirk that has caused a lot of our chaos is birthright citizenship, which, of course, Canada is one of the few countries that has that as well. But in general, the laws that we have on the books against border trespassing, against serial immigration crimes, against evading deportation orders, against employing people illegally, aligns with the rest of the Western industrialized nation. The problem isn't with the laws, it's with the uneven and selective application of those laws and the oversized effect that big money, big tech, and big business have in influencing our government at all levels to decide which laws to pick and choose from, like a cafeteria menu.
Right. Well, don't we let in more legal aliens than all other countries?
We remain the most generous country in the world, and I always say generous to a fault, to a very big fault, in the admissions for green card holders, for foreign guest workers, for foreign tech workers. The last book I wrote was called Sold Out, with John Miano, who's a former software programmer turned lawyer who represents American workers who've been hurt by these guest worker pipeline programs. Right now, the big hysteria is over the Trump administration's plans to reduce the number of refugees coming into the country. Even with the reductions that have taken place, under the Obama administration, we had let in 100,000 a year, which was an all-time high. Trump has brought that down to 30,000, and the plan that they are considering this week would bring it possibly down to 0. And you get this, even though we are still shoveling billions of dollars to the United Nations and the refugee resettlement racket, the question there is the impact that program is having and the failures to vet refugees coming from very hostile countries.
Yeah, how about some
Very
refugees
hostile
from
countries.
some Christians from the Middle East, from northern Iraq, who are being crucified?
Bigot, xenophobe, racist, racist.
Yeah, I've heard them say, "Oh, so what you're saying is you can't come to this country if you don't think like me?" Well, when we're vetting, we could start with the Christians,
Yes.
the ones that are dying.
Yes.
Maybe some South African farmers could come over too.
Yes.
Some Boers.
Yes. So without giving too much away, because I'm not supposed to give too much away, there is a very detailed historical background and analysis of the refugee resettlement program and the way it's been run in this country. Of course, the most famous beneficiary, au courant, is Ilan Omar, who was a refugee who came here from Somalia and was sponsored by an organization called the Lutheran Immigrant and Refugee Services. So a lot of people don't know that there are a handful of these religious nonprofits, organizations. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
That are exclusive government contractors to help shepherd, I mean, they're basically Sherpas for the UN. They act as agents of the United Nations to disseminate large numbers, thousands of these refugees to certain communities. People think, well, wait a minute. I mean, they look at Minneapolis, right, which is the biggest jihadi terrorist breeding ground in America. Like, how did that happen? Well,
You asked for
thanks
it.
for asking. And, you know, even more shockingly, the fact is that we're paying for that. Billions of dollars every year going to places like the Lutheran group, the Catholic Church, the Conference of Bishops owns one of these exclusive contracts, and a number of other of these kinds of groups that sort of operate kind of in the shadows, to coin a phrase.
Well, it annoys me when the left says things like, "Oh, what are you going to do? Get a giant bus and round up 30 million people and then ship them out of here?" No. First of all, let's try to stem the corruption and stop spending billions to sneak people here. But secondly, it just takes attrition. It just takes a little tweak, and they go home in droves. Just make it a little bit harder to hire illegals.
Yes.
Just make a few more verifications of their social security numbers. Just these little tiny tweaks, and it makes massive differences. We already see massive differences in immigration when the economy's not going great.
Yes, that's right. And, you know, without having to have entire caravans of buses going the other way, if we simply turned off all of these magnets that are drawing people to do crazy things, like, you know, cross the desert when they're pregnant or with 2-year-olds, endangering them, we'd be doing a lot to enhance the safety and the security of people on both sides of the border. So I go into, in Chapter 1, a lot of what's going on with the illegal alien caravans that we see. Again, it's one of those things, just like with the refugee resettlement dumping grounds. Wait a minute, how did that happen? Well, you should know. Again.
You and I should start a caravan that goes from the border and comes to New York, and it's called the Love Mobile, and it's just full of illegals, and we just let them out in Times Square and go, "Here we go, welcome to America." And see what the legislators and the elites think about that. This is called the Upper West Side. Enjoy yourselves. We'll be taking another bus to the Upper East Side. Yes. All right, you're free to go.
And a pit stop at Cuomo's mansion.
Yeah, here's
Yes.
a Snickers bar and some water. Bye.
Up at Breitbart.com right now, they're running an excerpt on the illegal alien shelter network. And, you know, when people talk about America turning into a sanctuary nation, you know, this transformation of us from a sovereign nation to a sanctuary nation, they focus on places like Montgomery County or Seattle or Portland, but you have to trace it all the way back to, you know, the beginning of the routes of these caravans. Who, you know, where's that money coming from? Who
Yeah.
opened those shelters? Who's running them? It's in the book.
Okay.
Don't forget, premiercollectibles.com/Michelle Malkin if you want to get a signed copy. We're sitting here for another...
2 days.
That's right. It's going to be a marathon series.
We're sitting on bedpans right now, and we have an IV drip.
You're not... Depends? No. And we'll continue to sign books and answer questions.
Another thing I wanted to say is, I don't understand what the left wants. Like when they say, you're putting children in cages. All right, you're the boss now. 5 illegals just showed up here, and they have 2 6-year-olds with them. Tell me what to do now. You call the shots. Tell me what to do. Do the kids go in the same holding cell as that person? So now we have kids in jail with adults? Oh, no jail. Okay, so what do I do? Oh, they're free to go. But if they're free to go, then there's no borders. I heard a chant the other day that said, from Palestine to Mexico, all the walls have got to go.
Yes.
So 0 borders anywhere.
Yes, except around Hollywood stars, the Vatican, right?
Yeah.
And Obama's Martha's Vineyard complex.
Yeah. Obama just bought a place. I think it must be in Bed-Stuy or a very densely black populated area. Mm-hmm. Probably in Harlem. Mm-hmm. That's where I guess it would be. That's the kind of place that he likes to live. Are you ready to do 22 questions in 2 minutes?
Oh my God. Okay, let me do some. All right.
I'm going to be screaming them at the top of my lungs. So don't get freaked out. Ready?
Okay.
Where were you born?
Philadelphia.
Who would you want to play you in a movie?
Lucy Liu.
I was going to guess that.
We both have freckles.
What was your first job?
I was a press inserter at the Atlantic City Press. Do you know what that is even?
No.
I'm sorry, I'm slowing you down. I am an ink-stained wretch, proudly. I always wanted to be in the newspaper business, so when I was a teenager, I got a job on the weekend where you took, I know, this is so vintage and throwback. In the middle of the Sunday section, you know that part that's in the plastic? Well, the machinery used to not be able to just do it on its own because it would always get jammed. So they would hire people to stand on these like big risers, and I had earplugs in, and you would bend over a gazillion times and put the advertising and comics inserts into the middle of the paper.
That sounds like a good job for illegals.
I was doing the inserting.
What is your biggest fear? It's very personal.
Spiders.
Who makes you laugh the most?
Do you
He's here
even have
live,
to
folks.
ask?
Doing a pilot.
Sorry, Jesse.
What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Well, I need soy sauce in the pantry and almond milk in the fridge. Not for me, but for my family.
That's interesting that you go to what your family needs in the fridge and ignore your own needs.
Mommy thing.
What is your greatest accomplishment?
My children and my marriage.
Who is the most interesting person you met recently?
Oh, I will. Your mom and dad.
Really?
Yeah.
My parents are here, folks. And Michelle, when she met my dad, she goes, "Wow, you're going to be really ugly when you get older." Just kidding. She didn't say that. What is your middle name?
I don't have a middle name, and so I have always gone. If you ever wondered, because one of my email addresses is Miss Triple M. It's Michelle Maglalang Malkin. My maiden name. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Weird language. What language is that in the Philippines?
Tagalog.
Tagalog.
Tagalog. Yes.
That sounds hard.
And maybe this is why I can say la la la.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
When people throw things away that are leftovers in the refrigerator that have only been there 2 days. Sorry, honey.
What is the last book you read?
I am in the middle of reading this fascinating book, and I wanted to actually ask you if you'd read it, by Rene Girod, called The Scapegoat.
Nope.
I'm giving you my copy, and I'm going to order an extra copy.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Somebody
Can't wait.
turned me on to Rene Girod. He only recently died about 4 years ago, but among people in the know, and now that includes you, he's the most brilliant philosopher of the 20th century.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
I'm
The
reading
Scapegoat.
Charles Krauthammer's the book that he was putting together when he died. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a collection of essays and life lessons.
The
and being a
follow-up to, well, what is
Yes.
it? What Matters Most? Or
Yes.
yeah, things
Yeah.
that matter, yeah.
What's it all for? What the hell is this? Anyway, sorry, I'm answering your questions. What is your favorite hobby?
Fishing, crocheting, and climbing the Manitou Incline. Have I told you about my addiction to the Manitou Incline?
No, I've seen photos of you up there.
Yes. So this is a straight vertical mile, 2,774 steps of what used to be a cog railroad
Oh,
line.
cool.
Fort Carson soldiers use it to train before they go to Afghanistan, which hopefully they won't have to keep doing. And like almost a 70% grade in certain parts of it.
Is this all post-Colorado stuff, all this fishing and...
No, I've been fishing with my dad since I grew up on the Jersey Shore.
Oh, really?
Yes, I've been fishing for, oh my gosh, bass and flounder and togs.
So you're a Jersey Shore chick, like the
No,
MTV show.
Tanning.
Tanning.
Gym, laundry. No, that's the guys. The girls just bitch.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Playing Texas Hold'em poker.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah?
I don't know if
I'm
you
pretty
should
good
feel-
at it.
Is that a guilty pleasure? That's
Well, I'll tell you why it's guilty.
uncool.
I'll tell you why it's guilty. Because perhaps inspired by you again, you see, you don't even realize how much influence you have in the world, despite being deplatformed everywhere. My hubby started up a guy's poker club.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a guilty pleasure because this is supposed to be a guy thing.
Yeah.
I like do it.
When you show up, do they all stare at him and go,
So, yeah.
oh, I heard the most disgusting joke in it. Oh, yeah, Jesse Barter's wife. I'll email it to you guys. Do you have any hidden talents?
You know, nothing is hidden for me. Yeah, having lived my life in public for so long. But everybody knows that I play the piano, but I played the organ when I was in high school. So I can play
Okay.
a mean organ.
What color is your toothbrush?
I have one of those sonic thingies,
Okay.
and it's black.
How
Did
do you,
somebody read you? That's really on there?
Yeah. How do you take your coffee?
2 creams, 2 sugars.
What is the last movie you saw in theaters? This is like a Charles Murray coming apart quiz.
I purposely haven't seen a movie in a theater in a long time because I really do try to practice what I preach here. And there's a whole chapter in the book on Hollywood's dissemination and propagandizing and open borders. And it's one of those things that I actually can have control over, right? I don't want my money going to people who like have no allegiance to our country.
No. Well, let's cut the crap.
Yeah.
When they talk about diversity
Yeah.
and they talk about how beautiful multiculturalism is, they mean their servants.
Yes.
They mean their au pairs. They mean their nannies. They
Yes.
mean their lawn care guys.
And every once in a while they do. Do you remember what a Kinsleyan gaff was? Do you know that phrase?
I think so.
So Michael Kinsley was the editor of the New Republic when it mattered, and he always defined a gaffe as when you accidentally tell the truth, right? So every once in a while, one of these Hollywood people, or sometimes these Democrat elites, will have a Kinsleyan gaffe where they say, "Well, I'm for this because of my nanny." Right? They actually do. We'll just say it, right?
Yeah, they've really started doing that. They stopped beating around the bush, like Beto the other day was saying, yeah, we are going to take your guns.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're
Yeah.
going to do.
Yeah.
Or we need Hispanic votes. That's why we have open borders. That
Right.
used to be a secret.
Right.
Now it's out.
No, yeah, exactly.
This is not 2 minutes. What is the last
That's
gift you
my
gave?
fault, sorry.
22 questions in 1 hour.
What is the last gift I gave? Oh my gosh. I have to think. I'm trying to think of a
You
special
gave that book
gift.
to my folks.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
What cause is dear to your heart? Does everyone get these?
This right here. You know, 3 out of my 7 books are about immigration policy. And as I sometimes have to explain to people, it's not because I hate brown people, because here you go. It's because I see that this gift that my parents were able to give me, a gift that was envisioned by the founding fathers, as something extremely precious, and I have this platform where I'm able to talk about it in a rational and enlightened and logical way, and I don't want it to be squandered for my kids. So the first book I wrote was prompted by living through 9/11, and I wasn't here in New York, but my husband had worked at the Pentagon, wasn't there that day, but was standing on top of a building where they could see flames and the smoke from the crash there. And then the second book on immigration I wrote, as I said, was on the impact of these guest worker pipelines on American tech workers. And then this one, really, I sought to answer this question that just bugged me every time I would watch cable TV, and it's all of it, the whole span of it, let alone the dinosaur networks of, well, who's funding it? And there was never enough time to answer. That's like the frustration.
Yeah, it's a big question.
Right? And we talked about how you're not allowed to answer Soros because you're just not allowed because that's hateful. But more to the point, it's just all of the constraints. I mean, I get to write nearly 500 pages. I mean, I'm so grateful that my publisher wasn't like, no, you got to cut that in half, right?
Well, it's also not just about immigration. I mean, you cover censorship, you cover free speech.
Yes.
It's a wide swath you've cut with this book, and I'm glad that you have footprints on the top.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
I feel like our experience as immigrants has been trivialized by all these open borders. I busted my ass to get here. I brought about 50 jobs that blossomed into thousands of jobs. I did 3 visas and then got a green card. That cost 10 grand.
Yep.
Renewing the green card. It's not easy to become a citizen. And then when they just go, oh, you're instantly, you crossed the Rio Grande, you're in. And you go, what about me? I busted my ass to get here, and I'm very thankful, by the way.
Yeah.
Why are you making it trivial for some that you need cheap labor from, and almost impossible for others? It's so hard to get here from England and Canada and Australia. It's
That's
a nightmare.
Right. Same thing with my parents in 1970 who had to demonstrate a special set of unique skills that they were going to bring, proof that they were not going to be financially dependent on the government, which of course Trump has tried to reinstitute. It's not like he just invented this idea of a financial deeming test, and that concept has been around in Western common law since 1645. And yeah, my parents had to pay the legal fees. They had to speak English before they even stepped foot on American soil. And I hear from so many. I have for the last quarter century or more heard from so many law-abiding, naturalized immigrants who feel like, you say, what are we, chopped liver? I mean, like, we're less than chopped liver, Do we get, in-state tuition discounts? Which, by the way, the Republican governor of Arizona has now embraced, Doug Ducey. I mean, the squad might as well be in charge of Arizona.
When my dad came here from England, my parents in '75, I was born in England, and the whole process when they were going through the naturalization, my dad had to hide his true personality from these people or they'd know what a psychopath he is. And so that was months of acting.
Your dad is a saint.
Sweating in the interview rooms, just saying, no, I'm actually a very well-behaved citizen and I can't wait to get to work. Sweat. All right, 22 minutes is almost up. What is number one on your bucket list?
I want to go to Iceland and I want to see the lights, northern lights.
It's like a $400 plane ticket. What are you waiting for?
I know. Time. It's a time thing.
Didn't you just go to Japan?
Last year, yeah.
Okay. Where do you want to go that you've never been? Oh, we just gave that away at number 21.
You know where I'd like to go else? Angkor Wat. Just so I can say I've been to Angkor Wat.
One of the questions here is, have you ever traveled to the Philippines?
Yes, many times. And was just there recently. My 15-year-old learned to scuba dive and got to see some of the Japanese shipwrecks from World War II that are still there.
Wow.
Yeah, super cool. This is a kid who did not learn how to tie his shoe until he was like 10.
35. If you go to the Philippines now, do you understand Tagalog?
So, this is a fascinating linguistic phenomenon. I'm a passive speaker. Because my parents spoke to me in Tagalog, but they knew, as many immigrants to this country know, that English is the language of success. And so I would respond in English. So I do have sort of like a, basic working fluency, but I can't speak it. My tongue is just frozen.
Most fish are smaller than dogs. Did you say that?
I could not say that.
But you could guess probably like mang tak tang pao.
That's it.
A lot of languages you can just guess.
Hey, by the way, have you heard of Jollibee?
No.
It's a Filipino chain restaurant, and they just opened up one here in Manhattan.
Oh.
So if you've never
I
had,
hope you're not insulted, but I didn't even know that Filipinos had like a food.
they have a food.
Okay.
But, as with everything, it's like a polyglot of things, because there's the Spanish influence, and then the Chinese influence, so it's like fusion.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to have to cook for you. That'll be our next show.
Yeah, the cooking. Well, we just have a cooking special of M&M.
Okay, there you go.
I wonder if M&M would try to sue us. Or maybe the candy would try to sue us. We couldn't use an ampersand.
Okay.
M and M.
Could we be McMall?
Molinas?
McMall?
Where would be a good place to meet you in person? Again, guys, I'm telling you, she's a monster. This is all an act. I'm in Georgia, but can travel to your location.
So go to Open Borders. Wow, was that one planted? OpenBordersInc.com. And you'll see all of the listings currently for the Sanctuary City Tour. He's in Georgia. Well, we'll have to see. Well, he should find a group to invite us, and we'll come.
Yeah. This is from Johnny. Spelled with an I-E. I've never seen Johnny spelled I-E.
Johnny Walker. No, that's a Y. Never mind.
Humble, Texas. So, citizens, county sheriffs, and especially police chiefs understand. Could you please clarify the specific current laws they are violating by not enforcing immigration laws? Or what are the specific laws illegals are breaking?
So, of course, Section 1325, Chapter 8 of the U.S. Code lists all the violations related to aiding and abetting and harboring illegal aliens. And I think if there was full enforcement of these laws, not only would we have a shutdown of every sanctuary city and county and state in the nation, but there'd be far more employer sanctions. And then many of these nonprofit groups that are enabling the illegal alien conspiracy not only should lose their tax status, but they should be criminally prosecuted.
Yeah, I think de Blasio said he would refuse to cooperate with ICE. You're hearing
Yeah.
this from mayors all over the country.
Yes. Well,
That's bizarre.
It is.
This is what's unique about America, too. Can you imagine a Japanese mayor saying that? Or a Guatemalan mayor saying they have illegals. Illegal aliens are everywhere.
Yes.
They're all over the Caribbean. You turn on, public access in the Caribbean, and it's all talking about the illegal immigrants from the other island.
Right. The
over
Dominican Republic sure doesn't play around when it comes
Right.
to kicking out illegal aliens from neighboring countries.
Can you imagine like a bunch of illegal white people in Japan going, "We're sick of being in the shadows. We want Tokyo to speak English." Their heads would pop off.
And demanding pro bono legal services, by the way. So I toured the Aurora ICE facility in Colorado a couple of weeks ago. Did you know that the illegal alien detainees there, whether they are criminal repeat offenders or otherwise law-abiding, have you heard this phrase?
Otherwise.
This is Geraldo Rivera speak, right?
Right.
Jerry Rivera, sorry. Otherwise law-abiding. They all get free access to LexisNexis. Do you know how much
LexisNexis
it
costs
costs?
a fortune.
It costs a
It's like
load.
$20,000 a month or
Yeah.
something.
No, they have little terminals where they get free access to LexisNexis.
Nice deal.
So,
Okay,
concentration camp.
We've got time for one more question.
We do, just one more. We're just like that.
So pretend we would cut to a commercial, MSNBC, and then we'll be coming back from the commercial with the last question. Why did you get involved with this? And this is Matthew from Houston, Texas. And I assume he means, this.
This. Well, we did a fun show once where I talked about my formative years at Oberlin College.
I was hoping you would respond
Yes.
like that.
Yes. And this was Berserkly of the Midwest. Now, I had initially gone there because I thought I was going to be a classical pianist and doctor, because that's what my mom and dad thought I was going to be. Quickly disabused of that after I failed my biology class and my music theory class. But that experience of meeting for the first time and confronting radical multiculturalism, liberal racism. Like, I grew up in a part of South Jersey where there were still KKK chapters. Like, it's just a weird place.
You don't look that old.
No, and so I knew what overt racism was. I mean, I had people shouting at me when I was 5 years old. I remember my first hazy memory of being told to go back to where I came from, which always puzzled me. So I knew what that was like, and it was so much easier to deal with than the condescension and the elitism of the student body, the administration, the faculty, who basically saw anyone who was non-white as theirs.
Wasn't Dinesh D'Souza a big part of your awakening?
Yes, he was. My husband had started not a conservative magazine, just something independent, and he himself was formerly a Dukakis liberal who made the journey from left to right to far right, beyond right, whatever you want to call it. Had grown up, was born in Berkeley himself, but was really fed up with the orthodoxy and the uniformity of political opinion. So we brought Dinesh D'Souza when he came for his book tour for illiberal education.
So this would be like 92?
91. Yeah. I think his book came out in 91, and he had a little section on Oberlin's craziness. That they basically were the progenitor of the safe space idea. That's where it came from.
Wow.
And when I saw how deftly he handled the hysterical mob that was trying to shout down his speech the whole time, I thought, oh.
What was their chant?
It was Dinesh D'Souza, do not let the white man use you.
I always forget that, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
Do not let the
white man use ya.
Like Dinesh's race has anything to do with what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That was amazing. So that day, you sort of went from a mousy conservative who was like, I think I could play the game and I won't get in trouble. And then you just went, screw it. And became a monster for the rest of your life.
Right, the seams started bursting here.
Yeah, I love that story because
Yeah.
it shows you can't acquiesce. You can't be who you're not and just try to appease people slowly and try to be kind. You just have to go all out.
Yeah.
Just blurt it out.
Well, and you have to be unapologetic about it.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
what I was looking for.
I definitely wanted to talk about because I talk about in the book your lawsuit against the SPLC and the plight of many of the young men who have felt compelled to stand up for their country, stand up for the West, stand up for their families, and what's happening to them. So I wanted to, give you an opportunity to let people know about that, because it is an integral part of the message of this book as well.
I really appreciate that. I mean, there's a strange new form of tyranny, and the government is definitely involved in it, but it's not just the government. There's mobs of citizens who have been brainwashed into oppressing their fellow countrymen. It's bizarre. It's like, people compare it to McCarthyism, but I think McCarthyism had some good points. I compare it to Salem, because with McCarthyism, communists do exist. With Salem, witches don't exist. They are fighting these Nazis that aren't a thing.
Yes.
And it's like ghost hunters.
Yes, yes. And so the same labels that have been thrown at groups like the Federation for American Immigration Reform, the Center for Immigration Studies, many of the other groups that have been targeted by the SPLC, I mean, preceding you and the Proud Boys, they faced the same kind of labels, and because social media didn't exist, it's always a double-edged sword. They weren't able to fight back as quickly. They weren't able to mobilize. They weren't able to organize. So this deplatform is going on, but we're still able to communicate, and so it's really important that people understand what's happening. And Free Speech TV is about that as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Are there any more questions?
No, we're out.
We are out.
That was
okay. And I'm going to be writing about some of the horrible cases that are going on, and part of the reason why I thought about doing the Stand with ICE rallies and sort of mobilizing ordinary people who wouldn't normally think of themselves as people who would go out on the streets, is I wanted to show people that they shouldn't be afraid.
Yeah.
And I have not ever, especially since I came out of the closet in college, essentially, ever let fear guide my actions or inactions. So knowing who's behind it and connecting all of these dots and understanding that groups like Antifa, Abolish ICE, they proliferate. And they've got all these,
Like a computer virus.
they are. They've got all of these different names, and it's important to know who's in your own backyard
Yeah.
doing this kind of stuff and harassing and causing harm and suffering to our neighbors and our friends.
Well, it's like you always say, sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yes.
And this is a massive dose of sunlight right here.
La. Where's your sunglasses?
I'm getting a sunburn just holding it.
So one last time, premiercollectibles.com/Michelle Malkin. You can pre-order the book still on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It'll be on the shelves on September 10th. And I know a lot of people have been asking, they say, where have you been? I've missed you. Miss me yet? Yes. I will be all over the place, and there's a blog on openbordersinc.com for you to follow along with me. And for at least now, anyway, I'm still on social media, even though my follower counts are throttled on Twitter, and the shadow banning has been going on for a long time. By the way, I can still talk, right? WordPress has been my blogging platform ever since
That's
I
everyone's
started,
blogging platform.
right?
Yeah, it's the main one.
I mean, before that it was Blogspot or a Microsoft front page, and you could just, upload it to whatever. GeoCities, do you remember that?
Yeah.
GeoCities, man, we're so old. I remember I still have my GeoCities account. So since 2004, I've blogged on WordPress, I think. Or whenever it first came on, I switched my platform. I was on WordPress. One of the heroines that I talk about in the book is a citizen journalist and whistleblower on the refugee resettlement racket. Her name's Ann Corcoran. And as I was putting the book to its final edits before it went to press, her entire website, which had archives that went back probably a decade, thousands and thousands and thousands of posts that included original reporting and data that you couldn't get anywhere else, just like that. And she was able to confirm that it was, based on whatever new determination there is now about what counts as hate speech. All she did was report the numbers and these
Hate facts.
Right, hate facts, and the hate names of the government contractors that have been involved in this. And what happened was that she was too successful because she inspired citizens all over the country to form pockets of resistance. And so she's been able to rebuild a new platform and a new blog, and I talk about a little bit of that in an update. But I'd never had it ever occurred to me that my own eponymous website at michellemalkin.com might be in danger.
I never thought of that before either. Wow.
So, I did a column after your deplatforming on steps that, the rest of us could take to try and wean ourselves off of the Silicon Valley overlord control as much as we could, while still sort of maintaining a presence and being able to be a voice for people who don't have voices anymore. I don't know if you know this, but I'm not supposed to give anything away, but I just want to say. So there's 3 dedications on the book. For the brave men and women of the U.S. Border Patrol and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. For the angel families and the memories of their loved ones sacrificed at the altar of open borders. And for my patriotic friends and allies dwelling in the valley of the band.
That's awesome.
In the military, they have a leave no man behind strategy. And we owe so much to those of you who have put yourself out there on the cutting edge. And, to me, you were one of the most valuable voices. And to see what's happened to you and to know, what's happened personally to you and so many people who have, joined the Proud Boys and just in general, just joined the anti-resistance resistance. The dedication in the book is truly heartfelt, and again, none of it is going to matter unless people actually digest it and use it.
Michelle, you're a huge inspiration. You always have been. You red-pilled me, and
What?
thank you so much.
Before I even knew what a red pill meant.
Yeah, Liberals Unhinged changed my life.
Oh.
And who built that is a masterpiece.
Oh, thank you.
And I cannot wait to devour this.
Thank you. Rah, rah, rah. And then have some Filipino food on the side.
Yeah, some Happy Bee?
Jollibee.
Jollibee.
Right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. Is there any other thing that we're supposed to do? Nope, we're going to wrap it up. Take care. Don't forget to buy Open Borders Inc. Tuesday, September 10th. It hits.